Never stop reading the Bible. Welcome to this deep dive.
Hey there.
Today, we're really getting into it. We're venturing into the book of Job, specifically looking at chapters 6 through 10.
Right. This section is quite intense. It's where Job starts responding to his friends, the ones who've come to, well, comfort him.
Comfort in air quotes, maybe, because Job's responses here they're raw.
Absolutely. You feel the emotional weight, but there's also a real intellectual struggle happening as he pushes back against their initial advice.
Okay, so let's start with chapter 6. This is Job talking back, mainly to Eliphaz, right?
Exactly. And the tone shifts.
Yeah.
Before it was mostly grief, but now Job really starts asserting his innocence. You feel the sheer force of his anguish.
He talks about his grief being heavier than sand. That's quite an image.
It is. And he doesn't just stop at his own pain. He turns that frustration towards his friends.
Yeah, he seems really let down by them.
Profoundly disappointed. He accuses them of, well, basically failing him. He uses that metaphor of streams that dry up when you need water most.
So, like, their comfort is useless when he's actually suffering.
Precisely. He's challenging the very substance of what they're saying, arguing it doesn't fit his reality at all. It kind of makes you think, what is helpful support in these situations?
Good question. Okay, moving into chapter 7. Job seems to broaden his view here, reflecting on life itself, and it's pretty bleak.
Oh, definitely bleak. He laments how short life is, like forced labor or how quickly a Weaver shuttle passes. The physical pain is clearly immense, but it's also causing deep mental distress.
Leading him back to that desire for death.
Yes, again, it feels like the only escape from what he sees as a kind of pointless suffering in a fleeting life.
And he takes this despair straight to God, doesn't he? It's not a polite prayer.
Not at all. It's incredibly raw. Job directly questions God. Why the constant scrutiny? Why him? Why this relentless suffering? He's pleading for just a moment's peace.
It feels almost like an accusation at points.
It does. He feels unfairly targeted. And, it forces you to confront that difficult question. How does intense, seemingly random suffering fit with the idea of a loving God?
A question that doesn't have easy answers. Which brings us to chapter 8, and Bildad steps up. His approach feels different from Eliphaz's.
Oh, very different. Bildad is much harsher, more accusatory right from the start. Eliphaz was a bit more cautious, maybe rooted in tradition.
But Bildad just lays it out there.
Pretty much. He comes in strong with the doctrine of divine justice. God is just, period. Therefore, suffering must be the result of doing wrong. It's quite uncompromising.
So applying that to Job, Bildad is essentially saying Job's kids died, he lost everything because Job sinned.
That's the direct implication, yes. He talks about how the wicked perishes and the innocent eventually prosper, drawing a very clear, almost simplistic line between actions and consequences.
Wow, that's tough to hear when you're already suffering.
Extremely tough. And it sets up Job's powerful response in chapter 9. He doesn't accept that simple equation at all.
Right, he pushes back hard. How does he counter Bildad?
Well, Job basically points to the world around them. He argues that suffering seems pretty indiscriminate sometimes, doesn't it? It doesn't always neatly divide between the good and the bad.
He complains that God doesn't seem to judge fairly in every case we see.
Exactly. And he gets into this deep struggle about how anyone can possibly be considered righteous or justified before an all-powerful God.
He knows God is incredibly powerful.
Oh, absolutely. He acknowledges God's omniscience, the sheer scale of his power. But that awareness actually contributes to his feeling of helplessness. Like, how can a mere human argue with that?
There's a real tension there, acknowledging God's power while feeling unjustly treated.
A huge tension. Job feels crushed by God's might, even while maintaining his own integrity. He laments how short life is and how futile his efforts seem against this backdrop.
It's a complex mix of awe and anguish.
It really is. Which leads us into chapter 10. This chapter reads almost like a continuation of that argument, but framed as a prayer, a direct address to God.
Following Bildad's harsh words, Job turns back to God.
Yes, it's a plea for mercy, for understanding. He's still protesting his fate, asking God why. Why did you create me just for this suffering?
He reminds God, you made me, right?
He does. He acknowledges God as his creator, which makes the suffering even more baffling to him. He laments how God seems to be governing his life, and it basically pleads for just a little bit of relief, some respite before he dies.
The Center Studio.